Today is Tuesday, January 3rd, and we're taking things one day at a time here on the Outside the Oval podcast, the newest running experience on the internet. I hope everybody had a fun and safe new year and have gotten off to a fast start to their New Year's resolutions. And what a better way to bring in the new year than a very special episode that once again truly encapsulates what this podcast is all about. Earlier last week, I was joined by Andy Payne, who formerly ran for Eastern Michigan, and he sat down with me to share his incredibly unique story through the sport. We start the show talking about his early beginnings in the sport, as well as his very successful high school career as a high school athlete at Thomas Worthington, which led to a few amazing races and incredibly exciting moments that Andy and I cannot wait to share with you. But as the conversation continues, Andy begins to share some of the experiences he has gone through that have perhaps negatively affected him in both running and during his day-to-day life, which mostly stem from his passion he shares for the sport. Through the trauma and turmoil, Andy finds ways to put a positive outlook on it all and describes how he was able to overcome these various shortcomings he has faced over the course of his very long running career. This conversation also includes some very personal stories or experiences he has gone through that will really make an audience put our sport into perspective for a few moments. In what was by far the longest interview I've ever had, I felt honored that Andy decided to take the time to share a special story on my platform, and really can't thank him enough for coming on the show. I can't wait for you guys to listen to it, but first, a few reminders. As always, you guys can all find my show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube, which will not be available, unfortunately, this week. As we did have some camera issues during the podcast, you will still be able to view it. However, there will be no visuals. Again, I highly recommend you head over to the Instagram and Twitter page at Outside the Oval, and then any questions you may have may be directed to my email, outsidetheoval@gmail.com. And now that that is out of the way, we can hop into today's show. Please sit back, relax, maybe grab a snack because this is a long one, and enjoy this beautiful conversation I have with my friend Andy Payne. Joining the show today is Andy Payne, who graduated Thomas Worthington High School in Ohio and spent some time running at Eastern Michigan. Andy, thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you, Gavin, for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is an incredibly exciting segment for me to host, as I feel like, Andy, you and I, we've shared some moments in the past, got to know you a little bit, but you've had a very intriguing high school career along with an incredibly unique story, and I'm super excited to help you tell it today. However, in order to truly tell the story, we have to start at the beginning, so that's where we're going to start today's episode at. First, could you tell me a little bit about how you first got into running, at what moment it all suddenly started to click for you?
Yeah, sure. So, it kind of started when I was like super, super young, like 6 years old. So I sort of had like one moment that kind of made me realize that this was the type of thing that I wanted to do. So I, uh, I was playing like tag with a couple of my friends at like a park, and like our parents were there, obviously supervising us, and I was having a blast. I thought it was so fun, and I didn't think of myself as fast, didn't think of myself as athletic really, because I just wasn't fast. I was slower in terms of speed than these two friends who were the two of them were both fairly athletic themselves. So we were playing for a while. I was really enjoying myself, and then they started to not really want to play anymore, and it was frustrating to me. And I went up to my dad, and I was like, man, they've lost interest. Well, why did they get bored with it? I thought we were having a lot of fun. And my dad goes, no, they just got tired. And I was thinking to myself, well, like what does that mean? Like I guess it didn't occur to me at that time that type of activity was something that could make a person tired. And I was thinking to myself, well, I get tired before I go to bed at night. So I was a little bit, but my dad just explained it to me. So my dad used to be a runner. He ran in college, ran at Ohio Wesleyan, and he ran 14:58 in the 5K, and then for a while after college, he got into like super mega mileage. He was doing 140 miles a week for a while, and just he did this thing where he would do like a super high mileage weekend. Like he would do like 35 on Saturday and 35 on Sunday, and then just like the rest of the week would be like 10 mile runs. He never doubled. He did all. So I guess my point in bringing that up is he knew about running and his experience with that type of stuff, and he was like, no, you have exceptional endurance, and so he told me that, and I was like, okay, cool. I guess that kind of explains it, and so I sort of from that point on was like thinking that like I probably once I got to middle school and high school and stuff that I would want to run cross country and track and be a distance runner. I never trained as a little kid. I did just a few random, like the mile in gym class and that type of stuff. Like I ran like a 6:18 mile in fourth grade or something, maybe fifth grade, like something like that. And so I thought that was pretty good at the time. And then so I got to middle school and I was like, okay, cool. I get to like, do a sport now. I get to um, you know, be a distance runner and like I thought I was gonna be like really, really good. And I ended up being just okay because so in our middle school program, and this is the way I think it should be. We ran like 10 miles a week, maybe sometimes less. We didn't do workouts. We would go on a 2 mile run, and that would be and I I thought it was a lot of fun. Hung out with my friends and stuff, and my thing with that was I was just so undeveloped physically compared to my peers. I was like when I was in eighth grade, was 13, I probably looked like I was 10. And I wasn't like, I didn't, wasn't in like I wasn't like skinny. I was just like, I was a little chubby. I had like baby fat and I had not like, a lot, but I was a little chunky to the point where the people around me seemed to be surprised that I was doing as well as I was. And I didn't quite understand that at the time. But certainly I was very physically immature, had not started any sort of physical maturation yet at that point. So I ran like I ran 12:34 in seventh grade, and in eighth grade I ran 12:10 for 2 miles in cross country, and then I my mile time was 5:28, my 1600 5:28, 2:41 the 800, 71 in the 400. It just like I was varsity in cross country. I wasn't even running the invitationals in track. And and so you asked when it kind of clicked for me, and there's a few moments. The one where it clicked sort of in a mental way for me, it was the big invitational, like at the end of the track season in eighth grade. I was there not even as an alternate, just there, and Arjun was in the 1600 because Arjun was a stud in middle school also, and he was in the 1600 and against Ashwin Briggs, who was a star at Pick North, and then I think ran at the Naval Academy, had some success there, and they were just going at it in the 1600, and Arjun ends up barely out kicking him and runs 4:53, and he hadn't broken five previously. He ran like 5:04 in a previous week or something. He ran 4:53, and then he's he I wasn't like super close with him at this time. We weren't great friends. We were acquaintances. And he like I swear he looked right at me after he finished, and he had just this look in his eyes, and I I I'll never forget that look. I it was just like such I can't even describe it, but I thought to myself, I want to feel exactly what he's feeling. That's what I want. And so I got home from that meet and I decided I told my dad I was gonna go on a run. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna gonna call this my first run for high school cross country. And I went out and I ran 4 miles. I came back and I was really proud of myself. Okay, like yeah, 4 mile run. That's a lot more than I had been doing. I was used to doing 2 or maybe sometimes 3 mile runs. And then the next day I went out again and I got kind of tired a little faster than the previous day. So I came back and I asked my dad how long I had been gone for. I didn't wear a watch or anything. And he was like, well, you were gone for about 25 minutes. And so that would have been enough time for me to do a little less than 3 miles at that time. And I thought to myself, okay, that's not good enough. I need to do better than that. That wasn't that's not what I want to do. I want to do better than that. And so I just started kind of running a lot that summer. I went to practice. The guys there didn't know me as anyone who had had success in middle school and was someone to be looked at as a potential contributor, because obviously I hadn't had success. Um, and there at the beginning of summer, I was looking a little chubby too, which didn't help for that perception at all. But they knew me as someone whose sister was whose sister ran varsity for them. My sister was a senior when I was a freshman, and so I just started going to those practices and just kind of trying to hang on for a little longer every time, and just challenging myself to run with like the top guys on the team. And I eventually, like, I ended up doing this run where I stayed with like the fastest guy on the team at the time, who was a senior named Jonathan Kissel, who he had run 9:42 for 3,200 as a junior, and he ended up being better than that. After that, he got ninth at the state cross country meet. So he had the school record before Arjun and I beat it in cross country. And I ended up doing like an entire run with him, like a 6 mile run that day. And he probably going really easy. I have no idea what pace we went. I didn't wear a GPS watch or anything like that. Then sometimes didn't even wear a watch. And I came back and I told my dad, yeah, I did like a 6 mile run with and I was running with Jonathan Kissel the whole time. And he goes, you ran with Jonathan Kissel? Like he was like a little bit shocked. And I was like, yeah, just it felt good. I don't really know how fast we were going, but it felt pretty good. And I had that sort of a, a change in my desire to be good and go after certain levels of achievement. But I also got lucky in the sense that at the same time as when I finally began to grow and start to not look like a super little kid anymore. Just kind of hit puberty at about that time, and sort of it's a good combination of two things. One, you're more motivated than you've ever been before, and then two, you basically have you know testosterone and human growth hormones squirting through your veins because you're going through puberty, right? I mean, and it's just a good combination of those two things. Just have I
Perfect
was
storm.
really yeah, a perfect storm. And so we I remember we did I still had really no concept of how good I could be, but we did this run towards the end of the summer where like the last 3 miles we were getting down to like we were running like 6:10 pace. I was like, oh, okay, nice, that's like really quick for me. And so I was thinking, like, going into this first race, like what do I want to run? I've talked to my dad a lot about it, and I was thinking, I'd love to run under 18 in my first cross country race, and I know that would be PRing in the 2 mile on the way. But so we got into it. It was just an inter squad meet, it was on the Eisenhower course. And I we get into it, and like I can already feel like it's the first time I'd spiked up since middle school running a 5:28 mile, and like something already I could tell hadn't experienced it like this before. My legs felt like they were doing things like that they previously couldn't. I just felt smooth. Felt like I had a snap to me that I wasn't. I had probably grown. I 5 inches I don't even know how much time. I probably had grown 5 inches from spring to maybe not that point, but the end of the next fall. And I I ended up going through the mile in 5:20. It's like, okay, well, there's one PR. And then I go through 2 miles in 11:20. It's like, okay, cool, that's another PR. And then had a pretty strong finish and ran 17:47. So in my first cross country race in high school. So that was like when it was like, okay, cool. I was right about myself early on as a little kid, thinking maybe I could be good, because I knew I had a lot more improvement left to go there. And yeah, ended up having a pretty good cross country season as a freshman. Ran 16:25 as a freshman in high school
Yeah,
at
so
Eisenhower.
yeah, I'll actually cut you off there because that's actually
Yeah.
where I was going to pick up next.
Okay.
Your running career really took off after your freshman year, and by the time your freshman year ended, you were ranked amongst some of the best in the state of Ohio. You were ranked 8th. I read an article on Mile Split while doing some research for this. Um, with your 16:25, sitting behind the likes of Dustin Horder, who I had no idea went 15:45 as a freshman. That's insane.
Right.
Ryan Johnston, Lucas Bond, Zach Kreft, teammate Arjun Jal, right there with you. Um, but obviously, the class of 2018 in Ohio is one I talk about all the time. I really believe it is one that could stack up against just about any other state's recruiting class over the past decade. Would be surprised to see it not number one. So to be ranked 8th is quite the testament to how the beginning of your career went in high school. What was training like for you, though, early on? So you talk about how you did 2 to 3 miles. Um, in middle school, kind of over the course of high school, how did your training develop, and is this how you were able to find so much success early on, you think, just adding mileage?
Yeah, I guess yeah, I'll talk about that. I was probably doing mid 40s in cross country my freshman year, and then after cross country season ended, I took like a week off and then immediately just started up in the mileage to where for a while my freshman year I was doing like mid 60s as a freshman, which was probably a lot more. I mean, I went on a 15-mile run once when I was a freshman, and I ended up running. I ran 4:36 and 9:45 as a freshman in track, and I'm a lot better at the longer stuff, so I saw that 9:45 as being at a much higher level than I was in the fall running 16:25 on like a really really fast course on a good day. And so um yeah, I was just and I guess I'll say about Thomas Worthington, our program in terms of workouts was high intensity. It was two very intense workouts during the week was generally the norm. So I did high mileage and high intensity in high school. So that was kind of how it was. And I after that I started experimenting with some more mileage. I ended up doing like an 88-mile week the summer before my sophomore year, and was running mostly 70s during that time. And after that, my mileage didn't increase very much. My highest mileage week ever in high school was my sophomore year. It was 88. The summer before my senior year, I never did more than 86. I had more consistency, like above 80, and I felt like I had was doing a lot of other things better. But I never. I didn't, it seemed at that point like, oh, is this kid going to run 100, 110 miles a week in high school? And I ended up not doing it. And um, if I could go back, I actually would, which is probably the opposite of what a lot of people would expect me to say about that. If I could go back, I would have ran more. I certainly don't regret how much I ran. I ran, ran a lot, did good workouts. It was all great, but yeah. So um, just about sitting in the mid 80s is about where I'd be at my highest, and mostly throughout seasons, I would probably start in the 70s, and towards the middle of the season, I would be in the mid 60s on most weeks, and I really wouldn't taper much. So towards the end, I would only take off a few miles. So uh, yeah, that's and workouts were always intense. We pushed ourselves. That was we had a lot of fun. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
good.
that's how workouts went for us and Jonathan Otter. Kind of 100% every race or every workout. So I'd say my 400 workouts my sophomore year were faster than they were. Definitely intensity wise, were quicker, but in terms of sheer pace, I spend more time slower pace than what I did in high school. I mean, high school in Ohio, I was doing about I think we peaked at 67. We did 12 to 14 at 67, 68. And then even when my senior year, I moved to Texas, I did some 63 to 65 workouts. So you get to college, you kind of build up in it. And um, with that being said, I've always been someone who's been around programs where we focus on the speed. And I've never, up until my senior year of high school, never been one to really focus on the speed. I've kind of mirrored my racing similar to yours. You got to get out hard, got to push them early. And that's kind of what branded your running. And another way you branded that running during your high school career, you downloaded an app called Sweat Mobile. And for those of you who don't know about it, it's a Canadian based app that essentially allowed you to post daily updates as frequently as you liked about your training. And this is where I met you along with several other running friends of mine. I know Zach was on there. My friend Lance was on there. Like I said, that's how I met you. And on Sweat, one thing you referenced a lot was that after runs, you would go to your backyard or wherever your trampoline was and jump on the trampoline for a certain amount of time. So this is a question I've always wondered, and I've actually always wanted to ask you and just never gotten around to it. When did you begin using the trampoline as a supplement to your running? And I mean, to put it simple, what do you think the trampoline helped improve?
Yeah, this might be a longer response than you were expecting to this question. So when I was a little kid, I loved to like do flips. Like I would do it on beds, on couches. I was really into it. I got pretty good at it. My dad would take me to like an open gym with like trampolines and like mats and stuff, and like I would just mess around on that. And then I ended up doing like diving and um just in the summer, and I ended up being really really solid at that. Uh, and I wasn't like super great acrobatically in any way other than just like flips and twists. I was pretty skilled at a point, and I did that all through like all through elementary school. Then like towards the end of elementary school, we got a trampoline. I would be on that thing, dude. I don't know, 4 hours a day. Like I would just come home from school and just immediately get. It was so much fun, and I did all through middle school, and then like
You were
I
living
was
my
doing
dream.
it. Right. No, it was awesome. And then I'd have friends over, and yeah, it was great. And early on in high school, like I was still doing it, like freshman year, summer before sophomore year, I was still doing it because it was just so much fun for me. It was just, and I'd go out, like film myself, all that stuff, and I even had like a YouTube for a little bit. Yeah, it was great. And I another thing about me is I have never sustained an overuse injury ever, or anything that even comes close to resembling one ever. And people who know my training history would know how
Rare.
unbelievable that is.
Yeah.
I think it's genetic to some degree because my dad has also never had anything like that, and he's done more mileage more consistently than I have, and so he never had that problem. And so I've always wondered if years of like bouncing just strengthened everything. I don't know what happened, but I it sort of gets into I've when I was a freshman and like freshman high school and then like sophomore year cross country, I felt really really like just good all the time. Like I felt strong, felt like my legs had a lot of snap to them, just felt things felt right. And then towards the end of my sophomore year of cross country, I um got like super sick before the state meet, like super sick, like pretty high, really high fever, like like yeah, 102 plus. I mean, not like really, but just a pretty significant fever. Like it was more than just like a little cold. I like was really feeling horrible, and obviously I ran the state meet anyway. Like obviously I'm gonna run it. I ran 17:32. I got literally 2 minutes slower than my PR at the time. Got fourth to last, and like I wasn't surprising to me that it went that way. So that was disappointing, but had a great season other than that. And I took some time off and then built back up again. Was still kind of having some respiratory problems, after that, breathing issues. Just didn't feel strong for a while after that. Had some fatigue issues. Was having like not running well in workouts. Was having some horrible workouts at the time. Was just was falling asleep in class. I just things weren't going right. I didn't really understand, and to be honest, I still don't know exactly what happened. But I I there's a few things that I sort of understand a little bit better. I might talk about later, but I about what might have caused that. And so I was sort of but I I guess I'd say I still like ran well. Like I ran 9:27 as a sophomore, but it just something wasn't quite feeling right even then. And then you know it- progressively a little bit better after that in cross country as a junior. Was feeling stronger overall, but I, to be honest, yeah, I just just seemed to have lingering respiratory issues for months and months after like getting super sick and trying to run a race, and then just some lingering fatigue, which I don't know if like some of that's from starting up training again and trying to train at a high level where I'm still kind of sick. I don't know. It seems like it's happened to a lot of people. It certainly happened to Alex Mayer from Oklahoma State. That happened to him in high school. It seems like from what I've heard about things, and so I was just kind of looking for answers for a while, not like in an extreme way because I was still PRing, running well, and enjoying the sport. Like, of course, it's fine, but just wondering why I didn't quite feel as strong as I did freshman year and early sophomore year. And one of the things that I explored was, well, what if the trampoline was making me just like strengthening things in other ways because I wasn't really doing any lifting. I was that somehow supplementing some areas of physical strength that were being untouched by what I was doing now. Well, like because I just after sophomore year cross country I stopped at the trampoline, so I was like, okay, time to get like serious. Like I don't want to hurt myself. So I think you might know exactly when this is. I think it was sort of junior year cross country that I was doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And um I did it for a while then, and then also a little bit in junior year track kind of. It was mostly junior year, and it was sort of just an experiment to see if I could get that snappy feeling back. And I um I'm not sure if it worked. I think it might have. I don't know because I had a good junior year cross country season. I got 15th at the state meet, which looking back, I think that was pretty good. I ran like 15:26. I had a lot of good races, really a lot of consistency. I never really felt like I had that same snap that I did the previous 2 years, just that same like untouchable feeling. I was better than I was those 2 years. I mean, I improved steadily throughout high school. So it wasn't like a super pressing issue to me, but I was just wondering what exactly was making me not feel quite the same. And I looked at explored a lot of different things. And so that was, I think I potentially might have gained a little bit of physical strength from it because you're right. I was doing a lot of it. I pretty much every day I would go out there and just do flips for a while, just like I did before. And
Yeah, I remember your posts would say jumped on the trampoline for a few minutes after, or like 40 minutes after, and I was always like,
right,
"What in the world?"
I know, man, dude. It was I'd go out there just like listen to something on my phone and do it. And it really, to be honest, what I think was what I think happened really that was making me not quite feel like I did freshman and sophomore year was um, I think I gained a little bit more weight than I should have. I think I spent most of the latter half of my high school career with more body fat than I needed at the time. Because one thing that's unique about me that I think we'll talk about later when we talk about the Big Mac mile is I don't get full really at all. I'm like super super good at eating. My stomach capacity is like it's unique. And so I've never in my life I don't have those cues to tell me when I've eaten enough. And so I would just come home from school and eat like an animal. I would eat healthy food too. Vegetables, fruit every day. My parents made healthy food for me to eat, but I just I can put stuff away. And looking back, because of course you're going to gain weight throughout high school. Obviously, you're turning from, going from a child to being a man. I do think I do kind of attribute it now to it, if I could go back, I would have tried to maybe pay a little bit more attention to how much body fat I had and tried to be a little lighter because I was also I was heavy for my height and distance runner. So yeah, that's no, it's a touchy subject for a little people for a little bit for some people, the weight thing, but that
Mhm.
I've had experiences with that on both ends, and I'll probably talk about the other end of it too. But so that yeah. So to answer your question, yeah, the trampolining was an attempt to see if I could um, get a little bit of that snap back. And what do I think I gained from it? It probably did help. I felt I probably had a little bit more speed that season than I did the next season, to be honest, where I wasn't doing it. So yeah, there you go. I know that was a longer response probably than you were expecting for that.
Yeah, for sure. But it was very interesting hearing kind of how many ways you found that it could help you. And I think that's even just having the sense of mind that it could be helping you is all that matters in our sport. It's such a mental contest all the time. So hearing that story is definitely encouraging. I never had a treadmill, so I could never do that. But it's something I did my own research on when you started doing it, and I realized it might help distance runners. Just not anything I've ever tried to do though. Uh, but moving forward a bit, there are a few races I definitely want to highlight before we get moving into the bulkier story. The first one is actually a race I did not get to watch, although I was there. In 2017, my sophomore season, this was the year my team qualified out to state for the first time since 1989. So a pretty special day for us. But anyways, my teammate Luke and I, who you know, we were on the track at Pickerington North, I believe it was. Yeah, it was Pickerington North. And we were getting awarded for our all region medals. And during this year racing in the D1 regional meet, and from what my dad told me, it was a heck of a race, heck of a finish. And it's one he mentions all the time. He was actually, this is from his view, on top of the bleachers at the Pickerington North football field watching the finish while he was waiting for the award presentation to start. He told me a story, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it came down to you, Matt Scrape, and Arjun Jaw, and he was the one that came storming by and sort of ruined the day for you and Scrape at the end of the day, kind of made it a big finish. So real quickly before we get to kind of, I'd say, the highlight of your high school career, Andy, could you tell me a little bit about that race, knowing the layout of the course, how that helped, and considering the finish between the three of you, it had to be a good race.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you bring up that race. That was my probably, well, for sure was my best cross country race in high school. Was my favorite cross country race in high school. I loved that race. And so Scrape was ended up being the one who won. So
Okay.
both of them came sprinting
Wasn't
by
sure.
me at the end. Yeah, Scrape winning at Argent second, then me third. Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about that race. So Scrape has always been one to not want to go hard at regionals. Really, always loved to just really wanting to save it, but just like all of us did. But he would talk about it. So he Scrape was funny at regional races. So I'll briefly mention the year before. We were so my junior year at regionals, it was like me, Hunter, Arjun, Scrape, and Lucas Bonds were the five sort. We were the top five in that race, and we were kind of running as a group sort of. And right when we got into the woods that first time, so not even a mile into the race, Hunter just throws in like a massive surge, and it didn't end up being a fast race like from the start. You know, we were like above 5 minutes at the mile. It wasn't, but he threw in just a random surge for no reason, which is the kind of Hunter would agree is the type of thing that he would do in high school. And Scrape just goes, "Why?" Like just out loud, like just just like he genuinely upset that Hunter would do that at regionals when we had the state meet the next week. So then I'll go back to the race we were talking about. Before the race, Arjun and I were in our tent, sitting in our lawn chairs, which we would bring to meets and just set up and sit down in it. And Scrape comes up to us. We see him walking up, and he goes, uh, "Neither of you are trying to break any records today, are you?" And I'm looking at the conditions, and I'm thinking, well, I probably couldn't break Andrew Jordan's course record even if it was dry here today. I doubt I could run 15:14 on that. And we both say, "Oh no, we're not gonna really worry about that." And I especially probably think he was a little bit worried about me because I tend to be pretty honest in races because that's just how I do the best. I really have no kick, obviously, at all. And um, but we tell him no because we really weren't gonna go out hard or anything. And he said, "Okay, good, just making sure." He's like, talk to Lucas Bonds right before this. He doesn't want to go out hard either. He's like, hey, I mean, we've got the state meet next week. We're racing Dustin Horder next week. Let's be careful. I'm like, okay, yeah, no, we're all good. We're good at that. So that's what we ended up doing. It was super muddy. I saw how slow the times were in the girls' race, so I knew about, wasn't the time that I ran was going to be unimportant. Yeah, it's gonna be whatever. And so, but my mindset was kind of like, oh, gotta get out, gotta get out, gotta get out, because my mindset for every race was that way because it was my absolute biggest weakness. So thankfully, the conditions this day made it so that no one else really wanted to get out hard. So it was actually very easy for me. I sprinted as hard as I could, as always, but this time I landed right in the front row. I was like, okay, sick. So right from the start, I'm in a good position. So it's kind of, we're just front row is kind of just like me, Arjun, Scrape might not have even been up there yet. And then you have like Lucas Bonds was there. And you have Kellen Pasaki from Dublin Jerome, who ended up leading the first part of the race. He comes through the mile in like 5 flat. And we kind of like give him a little bit of space, actually. That's how little we were trying to run fast. We come through in like 5:02, which was not fast, really, obviously. And um, so then probably in the next 400 meters after the mile mark, we end up making contact again with Kellen, and then it's just sort of me, Arjun, and like Lucas Bond sort of up there, and Scrape's teammate Brady Johnson was also kind of in that front row in front of Scrape at that point, and Brady's run really well at Lipscomb now, so yeah, just throw that there. And we ended up still really not pressing at all, slowed down even by a lot. Went up the hill, and like I remember at one point Arjun and I were like 1-2, like going up the hill, and like really we're all just kind of jogging. We come through 2 miles in 10:16, so we've slowed down even more. But I feel like really, really good at that point because um, yeah, it's just awesome. I think I was fairly efficient at that, slightly slower than what our 5K pace is. That was a pretty good pace for me to feel relaxed at. And I wait about another minute and then just start making a break for it. Probably like, 11 plus minutes into the race. I start start going. I'm like, all right, Scrape doesn't want to get up on me. No one wants to go with me. Fine, I'm just gonna go. And I actually like made a gap, and Arjun told me later about this. I was talking about how no one really wanted to go with me, and Arjun was like, "It's like I don't know, man. It was just you were going fast. I don't know. It's like we sort of had to make a decision there. It wasn't, it was a decision to make it hurt sort of for the rest of the race. And Arjun is at that time in his career was pretty uncomfortable in mud. Just him being very undertrained at that point. Now, obviously, he's just a strong collegiate runner, so that's not a weakness of his anymore. But he wasn't comfortable then, so he attributed that slightly to him not really being able to close the gap when I started to form it, and so yeah, started to go. Some random guy who I had never seen before, just some parent from another team, yells like, he sees me gapping Scrape like for the first time ever, and he's like, "This is it, Andy." All right, I'll never forget that guy yelling that at me, but I don't know who he was. But so then I just start just like really pouring it on. We go into the woods, and like Scrape has like kind of reconnected at that point, and Arjun hadn't. It was just me and Scrape at that point going into the woods. For it was like 800 meters left in the race, and so I was still feeling really strong though, and I didn't. I bet Scrape was thinking at that point that he wasn't going to have a lot of trouble beating me, which ended up being true. But I threw in another surge, like kind of like started really pouring it on again, kind of gapped him again, and he but ended up closing it by the end of the time we were in the woods, and then passing me on the straightaway. And then to my surprise, Arjun flies past me because I thought we had just put him away. But of course, I was so glad to see it. He wasn't happy that Scrape outkicked me. Would have was fine with Arjun outkicking me. Of course, I want him to do well. And then so Scrape ended up putting like 6 seconds on me in the final straightaway. It was insane. He ran 15:37. I ran 15:43. Arden ran 15:39. But it certainly was my best cross country performance. And I think like I ran 15:17 at Watkins as my PR 2 weeks or the week before that. And I think if I had ran that race that I ran at Pick North on that dry Watkins course in good weather the week before, I think it would have been low 15s, not under 15, but
Mhm.
low 15s, like 15:05 or maybe something a little better. So that was an awesome race, and yeah, we finished. I talked to Scrape and Bonds after, and Cesar was fifth, and um I hmm,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I was,
remember. Yeah, I
oh yeah,
remember
sorry, go ahead.
talking to. Yeah, I remember talking to you a little bit after because we were heading out and you had just gotten your medal. My dad told me a story about it. You were pretty happy with how it went. Seemed to be a pretty good day for you. Um,
It's
I
great.
definitely think that. Yeah, I thought it went well.
Yeah, it was awesome. I was happy for Arjun too because he really missed pretty much the whole summer due to injury, and he and so he was really rounding into shape. It had started for him the week previous. He ran like 14:59 at districts, so like it's like okay, nice, it's coming back. And then like he's basically almost beating Matt Scrape the next week, and like at that time, I saw Matt Scrape as sort of maybe as good as Dustin. That might have been a little bit of a function of me being too impressed with myself for that race. But I was thinking this kid's the real deal. So yeah, no, we were both happy at that point for where we were. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Going into that state meet, I do remember everyone saying, "Oh, Scrape could win this. There's a chance." And for Conant Smith to be the one that ultimately steals the show, almost knocking down Horter, was a very, very pleasant surprise. But one I don't think too many were shocked about, but it produced a great moment for the sport. We'll talk about that race here in a few minutes. But I'm sure you know where this next question is going. The next race we have to talk about was probably your shining moment from high school, on the individual side at least. Um, your 2018 indoor track state championship race in the 3200. I went back to look. Your interview is still the most watched video from that entire meet. That race is still probably a top 10 video ever watched on MileSplit Ohio. That's one a lot of people always talk to me about when I mention some good uh, throwback distance races in the prime of Ohio cross country distance. But in this race, you won your first ever individual championship. You really cemented yourself as one of the best distance runners in that class of 2018, and you ran away from from some of the best runners in the state. Vincent Maury, your future teammate Josh Hill, Adam Waker, who went to Furman, Matt Duval, who went to Kentucky, so many other talented runners. But could you tell me a little bit about that race, how it went, and kind of the emotions that you went through after the race?
yeah, absolutely. I had been having kind of a lukewarm season at that point. I had only ran one good race out of four out of four. Only one was anything other than bad, and um, I had not run any faster than 9:29 at any point going into that. Um, and I'll bring up the weight again. I was really heavy at the start of that season. I mean, and um, I was going and eating McDonald's too much. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I would at school. I remember I would right like I had like a free period between like one class, and then I would go and I'd go to McDonald's. I'd get a steak, egg, and cheese bagel and a sausage, egg, and cheese McGriddle. I'd go get that before AP Lit. Come back, be in a really good mood during AP Lit because I had just eaten two of my favorite sandwiches of all time. I was just I man, I was heavy early in that season, and I I just it's sort of been that's been a thing for me. I just having more body fat than you would expect a distance runner to have, and it was traceable to my behaviors. And so I opened that season in a 9:31, and I was kind of like thinking to myself like, okay, well I'm pretty heavy, so that's pretty good. I mean my PR at the time I ran 9:13 as a junior, but I opened my season in 9:31 and like okay that's not where I want to be, but like I need, I need to get together here with like what I'm doing. Like I and so like I keep up with the high mileage, training hard, and I run a couple other races. One was a 423 1600 on a flat 200-meter track, which was really good for me at the time because I'm no miler. That would be like a little under 420, like converted like to like an oversized track. So like that was really good for me at the time. And but then I tried to run the Spire Showcase 3200 where like Zach Kraft and Chad Johnson broke 910, and my current my teammate at Eastern, Marcus Kemp, won that race, and in 902. He's from Canada, and
Hmm.
I went
I
I
remember that
tried.
race. He brought his own pacer. That went like
He did
viral.
bring
He
his own
won
fist.
with the pacer. Everyone went crazy. I think Adam Bulker, who you beat in the race, and I think I picked to win that 3,200-meter race, was in that race with Kreft and Chad as well.
It's so yeah, he just brought his own pacer. Yeah, it's hilarious. Especially man, if you knew the kid, you would think that was so funny. But so he yeah, so I went out. I was like 434 through 1600, like really close to Chad and like Kraft, maybe like 2 seconds behind. I just died, man. It was horrible. I ran 929. I went 434, 455, and I'm a 913, 3200 guy at the time. I got eighth at the state cross country meet. I was better than that, and I go home, step on the scale, and it says like 151. And it's the end of the day. Obviously, when I'm really weighing myself and recording, I do it first thing in the morning. But it says, it's 5 foot, 5'8", 151. I'm like, man. And I kind of looked at myself like, okay, I'm done with this nonsense. I'm not going to. I'm done going to McDonald's. I'm gonna like freaking gonna eat. I'm gonna eat healthy food every day. That's what I'm gonna do. I need to stop. Like I've let it go on too long. I'm probably not gonna win the state meet now. Like that was what I wanted to do. I'm probably not even gonna do it now. And just kind of like just sort of was a little bit disappointed in myself. But it didn't. I never got really down about it. It sort of just it went from disappointment to like just determination. And I ended up dropping several pounds from then until the state meet looked noticeably different. And I had like the week of the state meet like a really really good workout where it's like okay finally it's I had lost several pounds of useless body weight. I looked like much closer to what I thought I should look. Still probably a little heavy, but and I finally, after a bunch of just mediocre workouts, bad races, finally had like a really really good workout. It was like 4x800, 2x400 with like a lot of rest. And I was doing this with Arjun, and it was just pretty good, like 220, 218, and like 214, then 215, like, and then like we ran like 62 and then 60 on the fours, and that was like really really good running for me at the time. I was like, okay, finally I'm ready. And my coach talked to me, and he was like, um, he looked at me, and he was like, so do you think you're the favorite? And I say, well, I can tell you no one else thinks I am, but I think probably I am. Yeah. And that's what I told him. It was like the Monday before the race. So we go into it, and like I'm on the starting line, and I'm just like weirdly confident. Not weirdly. I think it would be weird to others how confident I was feeling, but I just had a good feeling about it. I just thought I was listening to Eminem before the race, and I was just hyped up. I don't even usually listen to Eminem. That was what felt right. Warmed up in that little upstairs room. Didn't even go outside. Just ran up and down the hallway, and I was just like, yeah. Before the gun even went off, I was just like, yeah, I think I'm probably gonna win. And so we ended up I go out in dead last of course, and I spend the next 2 minutes working my way up to the lead, which is a pack of it's Adam Bouclair leading it, and then Vinnie Mari there, and Josh Hill was there, and like Cesar Ariano was up there. Nate Kowalik was up there at the time, who was a great runner, but had a little injury and wasn't really in his best shape at the time. And Giovanni Coppola was actually close too. Yeah, a lot of runners there, and I just kind of let uh, Adam Bouclair lead, and then Vinnie Mari took over and led a lot of the middle portion of the race. And we go through the mile in 440, and like that was like a faster pace than any 3200 I had run so far that season because I just run so bad. And then but I felt awesome at that time. It's like, okay, nice, nice, and just like started just like, okay, I need to really just kind of just put a few minutes away, and then I can start thinking about making a move. And Mari was still leading with 3 laps to go, and I sensed a little bit of weakness from him, like just like a little bit. I could sense a little bit of a let up, so immediately I just pounced on it and just like went to the lead, just tried to be really aggressive. And uh, then Adam Bouclair basically took the lead from me immediately after I did that, which shocked me. It shocked me. I thought I was being so aggressive at the time that no one was gonna, that everyone would be satisfied with me doing that and leading, but Adam wasn't, and he took the lead from me. It was ballsy, and his coach yelled at him. He yelled at him, "All right, Adam, just keep tightening the screw and you'll be all right. Just keep tightening the screw." I remember he said that like twice to him, and I was just like, "Okay, okay, just gotta stay with him." And I knew he also did not have amazing speed. Neither one of us did, and I was thinking to myself during that race, this is sort of a battle of people who are fairly similar in that regard. So I wasn't super unconfident about being able to outkick him, only as because of how good I felt at the time. I felt great. I felt great every step of that race. And but he does have better speed than me because everyone has better speed than me, and I knew that at the time. But I, with a lap to go, I was like, okay, it's time to get really aggressive again, and I took the lead and just started just pouring it on, running as fast as I could. I tied up a little bit with 100 to go. But my previous 200, the first 200, the last 300 was fast enough. It was probably like 31. It was fast enough that I had built enough of a gap where I probably took a little too many looks over my shoulder, but I thankfully my celebration was a little bit cringe. It's still a little bit hard to watch, but yeah, yeah, no, that's oh yeah, I'll never forget. That's the only
Throwing
time
up the
really I was
ones.
ever able to do that. Yeah, held up the ones, and it was just awesome. It was a great feeling. Just really validating, super validating for me that like I was just I had some bad races. I think there was a reason, and I was still a good runner, still capable of winning a state championship, and it was just awesome. My coach was my coach was so proud of me. He I was like his only athlete to win an individual title, and he just the first thing he said to me was my only state champion, and he gave me a hug, and Arjun was just so happy for me, and it was just it was awesome, and even like Adam McClare said to me after the race, because it was basically just me and then a bunch of juniors, Adam McClare, Vinnie Mari, um, who probably is the most talented of us all, and Josh Hill was also a junior. Adam said to me, he was like, "Yeah, you deserved it the most," and I was thinking like, okay, yeah, cool, thank you. Not sure I necessarily deserved it the most, but I was the only one who did not have one chance remaining to win that race. So I it was just awesome, and I went home, went to Steak and Shake that night with my dad, super late at night, and yeah, I went to bed, did a long run the next day because I had New Balance Nationals in 6 days after that race. But yeah, so yeah, there you go. That's
Back to business.
the story. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned this race to you before we started recording. I felt like it was a very special moment, not only for you, but just to people around the state of Ohio. It was kind of the first time that a win kind of pleased the entire community. The entire distance scene was happy with the outcome of a competition. And in this case, this race, just about everyone I knew connected to the sport. It's difficult to put into words, and that's another thing I told you before. But it just seemed like everybody wanted you to win and was happy you did. It made your win kind of feel even more special than it already was. But sticking to high school for one last topic, Thomas Worthington, it's a very well-respected program across the state of Ohio, and it is that for many reasons. But the culture you guys captivated and brought to the running community is the one I am most interested in talking about today. I think that's also indicative with the kind of meets you guys host, the Les Eisenhart meet. Second to none. That's always me. I wish we would have done, just never got out there. But the Fleet Feet preseason invitational you guys host or kind of co-host, co-run, whatever it is, always a very special moment for our team. We enjoyed that. And so much more you guys were connected with. I know we ran at many places that you guys did, those Worthington Hills. We were out there very often, probably second most to you guys where you guys would run. But it's no secret that your teammate, Arjun Jaw, and you were very close friends. You've mentioned it already in this podcast. And considering everything you two accomplished, I would imagine that your two successes certainly can be attributed to each other. So, how important was your relationship with Arjun in high school, and how much of your success throughout your high school career would you attribute to him?
Oh, it was extremely important to me. It would We became friends starting that freshman year cross country season because we were just both doing really well as freshmen. He ended up doing a little bit better than me that season, and every season beyond that, doing in some seasons doing much better. He's dripping with talent. He is yeah he could do a lot with a little, and he was really inspiring to me because I would look at the things that he did, and it just and I'd be impressed with his the way he would raise things that he would do on very little training, and just knowing I could obviously sense some of that to some degree in myself, probably to a slightly lesser degree, and it made me value my own talent and my own ability even more. Just being able to sort of see it reflected into you know manifesting in another person who such a close friend, and he just we would work out together all the time. There were some periods in high school where us working out together would be him just absolutely dropping me every rep of every workout, and it was awesome. I didn't have to go to college and learn how to work out with people, learn how to get destroyed by people I already knew. So it wasn't it was great. I learned a few really key kind of mantras from him, sort of. One was um, he was just talking about the way he races, and he told me, Andy, what's different about me from most others is I respond to pain by increasing effort. That's what he said to me. He said I respond to pain by going harder. I get angry at the pain, and so I always thought about that on workouts, like just yeah, when the effort gets hard, maybe respond to it by increasing effort. That was one thing I learned from him, and yeah,
Yeah, that's when you're running a workout next to him, you've got to be like, man, this guy is he's hurting. He's just embracing it. And you're probably alongside him or behind him, in front of him, wherever you are. Just like, man, I am hurting so bad right now. That had to definitely demotivate you at times, I'd imagine.
oh, it was awesome. It was awesome, and we were just kids. We would sit around, listen to J. Cole lyrics, and talk about like, oh, how this is so similar to this is just like us, like stuff that J. Cole would say, like, "Oh, this is just like running." We would talk about that. It was just, it was so much fun.
And
Yeah.
all the success that you 2 achieved, though, all that you guys shared, whether that was a workout or a race, it all seemed to culminate your senior cross country season. I don't mean to change subjects, but I do want to hear about this before we
Yeah.
move on. Um, the 2 of you guys finished 1st and 2nd in team scoring at the cross country championships your senior season. I remember your post about that. Pretty special moment, for the 2 of you. Was that something the 2 of you thought about, uh, entering the meet and considered to be a possibility? But what was that race like for you 2 afterwards? So, kinda finishing 1st and 2nd had to be a special moment in the team standings. Kinda could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was great. Arjun, like I mentioned earlier, was kind of coming back from not having really any base at all and just trying to put together a season. We went into that race, not it didn't seem like he had a chance to win, but we had seen him do things before, and we weren't necessarily too sure between the two of us and my coach that he wouldn't be able to go out and run with Dustin Horder. I mean, maybe he was just making massive jumps all season. Maybe he's going to make another one here from regionals to state. I mean, he's just gaining fitness so rapidly. So his
Entering
expectations,
that day, that's entering that day, that's what me and my friends were talking about. We thought Scrape could win, but our sleeper pick was Arjun.
Right, right. That's a good sleeper pick. That wow, I'm impressed with that pick. That's a good one. And so his expectations were a little wide open because him, challenging Hoarder and coming close to winning was something that to us made sense. Also him finishing fifth, which he did also, that also made sense. It made sense to us after a lot. And um, I, I myself was looking at. I would have loved to have been top five. I was in fifth with like 400 to go in the race, and then Arjun passed me, Lucas Bonds passed me, and Josh Hill, my future teammate, passed me. All three of them did, and I ended up, yeah, being where I wanted to be at 4,600 and finishing eighth, which I still thought was pretty good. I would have liked to have not been 33 seconds behind Dustin. I would have loved to have been like 20 behind. But yeah, so I was somewhat unhappy. It was far below kind of what my aspirations were going into that season, only slightly below what they were in the previous few weeks leading up to it. I mean, I got close. I got close to what I wanted to do. If I would have ran 4 seconds faster, I would have been top five. So yeah, I mean, it's good. And um, and Arjun and I were talking after, and Arjun told me, oh, he's like, I knew 800 meters in that when Dustin, Scrape, and Conant were way out there in front of us. He was like, I knew we weren't really going to be able to catch them, and I knew it too. I I started ignoring them and started looking at everyone else. And so yeah, we ended up being, yeah, he was first in the team scoring, I was second in the team scoring, and third in the team scoring wasn't too far behind me, like 5 seconds. So I was, that kind of made it more special too, because and it was a guy who very realistically could have beaten me too. It was like Nathan Kuzno, I think was the one, and I think it was, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was, um and yeah, it was great because it was, we both weren't ecstatic about how we ran. We weren't really disappointed about it, and so it was kind of something. It just gave us a little extra something special to remember that meet by. There's a really good picture of us that someone took. I don't even know who took it, of us walking away with our our medals on. And
I've seen
um
it. Yeah.
yeah, right. So it's yeah, it was that was that was the end of that story there. And yeah, it just a little something extra special. And our coach always used to call us ghosts. He would say we have two ghosts in the race, meaning our effect on the team score was invisible, and that ended up being entirely true even at the state meet, which was sick. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty awesome that you had that dynamic of a group at the top of the race. But transitioning to a college now, you spent your time at Eastern Michigan, like you referenced a few times. You ran a lot of miles. I remember reading your Strava, and you'd be in the middle of your fourth straight 100+ mile week.
Yeah,
Um, I'm not entirely too sure how long you could kept it up, but I do remember being a few weeks in there. You were like 110, 115, 110. You were
yeah.
right up in there. You were getting it done. Um, but fast forward to current day, kind of taking a look at your Eastern Michigan career as a whole, what are some moments that stick out to you? And could you share a story about a particular race or training session from Eastern Michigan?
Absolutely, yeah. So I I had a stretch there of either 17 or 18 weeks in a row where I ran 120 miles every week, 120 or more every week. One of those weeks was 141. But so I
That's
was
crazy.
doing that, and I was working out hard too. I was just um so yeah, and so there are two races from college that are my favorites that stand out the most to me. One was the MAC meet, my junior year, 2020, so the COVID year. Um, we found out about a month before that race that we were going to run it, and that it wasn't going to affect eligibility. So we were all really excited. And that was kind of some of the best our team culture has ever been, when it was just us running by ourselves. Just basically like yeah. I mean, let's defend the title anyway. Let's we didn't have a season, but like, well, whatever, let's do it. And I had spent that whole summer at home alone. because all classes were online. So, and I was really dealing with some personal issues in my life that I might talk a little bit about later. But uh, at the time, so I wasn't even on campus, and I was just at home training. And we doing time trials. We found out about that race, and I was like, okay, cool, cool. So we kind of got something a little bit to shoot for. Had a few workouts. I mean, pretty much everything that season just made me feel like I was just on a different level than I had ever been. I thought I was probably going to be able to win it, and I ended up. So I go back to Ypsilanti. I'm there staying with my teammates for about a week leading up to the race. And we go and because I had to go get my physical, get some COVID tests before I would even be allowed to practice and travel and all that. So we get into the race, and oh my gosh, it was like really the first time I had really tapered for a long time, and I just the warm up I felt kind of normal. Doing strides before the race, I felt just my legs felt like springs. It was insane. It was so, and then I look at I say to my teammate, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna win this race, and uh, ended up um falling hard about 400 meters into the race, really hard. Went down so hard, and um, got up, was in dead last. Um, then I just decided, okay, well, gonna find the 4 and 5 guys, gonna run with them, and we're gonna win this team title. Like I'm not, like didn't I did not come all the way out here for nothing. And so I ended up doing that, but then for some reason, I was already with our 2 miles into the race, and the split was 9:46. And I was like, oh, okay, nice. And I felt amazing. I felt so good. I was like, okay, cool, wow. Maybe. And so then I start looking at the front pack. They'd round a turn, and I would just start counting. And that number got lower and lower rapidly, rapidly. I couldn't believe it. It's like, okay, I guess I just feel awesome today. And I ended up really being in contact with the lead group after just after 5K. I was at 15:06 at 5K. Just after that point, I got in contact with the lead, and I knew most of my teammates were aware that I fell. And so what I did was I had still two teammates up there right in contact with the front. It was Vinnie Magnuson and Chris Devaney. And so what I did was I popped to the front for about a second so that they would know that I was there, because I wanted them to get hyped up knowing that we had three guys like in the top four at the time. Um, so, and I felt a little bit of a I could feel the energy around Chris Devaney shift a little bit at that point. And uh, it turns out later that Vinny didn't even know I fell because he just got such a good start, he didn't even know it happened. So yeah, I popped to the front, wanted to hype them up. Hopefully it did, and then I was like, okay, nice, nice. I can win this, and I ended up taking the lead from Josh Park with a K to go. Just started like running basically like just harder than I've ever run. I knew I was running at a higher level by far than I ever had before. Ended up coming around the bend in first and just giving it all I got down the straightaway. And Josh Park ended up out kicking me at the end, and he deserved that. Josh Park is an athlete I have a ton of respect for. And that was the kick of a man that day. I had probably my best last 100 meters of a race ever that day, and he put 2.5 seconds on me. So and he ran 23:57. I ran 24 flat, and I talked to him later. He's told me, man, I just wish you didn't fall because we both would have ran like 23:40. He's like, okay, well, I bet I could have ran 23:50 there. And unfortunately, I never broke 24 after that. So that was my first, and that was probably the best I ever ran was that day. And so that's one race. And my second race, which won't be as long-winded of an explanation, was I ran 14:08 on the track. Um, Indoors at GVSU as my junior year, and I was 20 for that race, so fairly young. And I ran. It was awesome. My PR going in was 14:28, and I thought maybe I could run around 14:10. Uh, Ended up going through the mile in 4:33, right next to my teammate Toby Galter, and I remember I said out loud, "Perfect." I didn't even mean I don't even know why I said that, but I was just like, "Oh yeah, this is awesome." And then we we're at 1300, 908, and then after that I kind of like took the lead up from the chase pack, and just started like me and Toby, we both ran 1408. I ended up our last 1600 was like 426. I mean, it was the highest level thing I had ever done on the track at that point. That was back basically right before everyone and their mother broke 14 in the NCAA. That was kind of right before that, where I still didn't quite know exactly what it was going to look like after that. So I was thinking, okay, nice, nice. I'm really kind of um, really starting to run well, starting to feel like I think I should, and like this is awesome. This Miles thing is working for me, and so and I ended up never running faster than that. But those are my two favorite races. Yeah,
Yeah, those are pretty good moments, and it's pretty cool to hear you running across some names that I'm pretty familiar with. Vinny, I've heard his name many of times. Toby, he's big fan of the show.
yeah,
He's undefeated leaderboard record in the Outside the Oval Strava group.
yeah.
He's always up there running a lot of miles. Josh Park, he was my trying to think what year it was. I think it was going into my sophomore year, Ohio cross country camp counselor
Oh,
in
okay,
group
cool.
two. So I'm pretty familiar with him. Funny enough, he gave me some advice with some hip stuff, and I do that every day to this day.
Oh,
So
nice.
he's been a pretty big influence in a very small way, but pretty significant way. So pretty cool to hear that. But this is really when your story, I think, takes a turn. Definitely very different from what we've been talking about. So current day, unfortunately, you are no longer competing for Eastern Michigan, and I'll let you catch us up on that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for asking me that. Um, yeah, it's a long story. And a lot of my like people who are really close to me know some details, like know all the details. You know some details about it that I won't even talk about this time, but it's something that I will share in its entirety someday. I definitely do. I have a story to tell. I think I have a really interesting perspective about certain things regarding the story, and I think I'm the right person to tell it. But I so in March 2020, I had a severe negative reaction to some to a medical treatment, and ended up having I've had some neurological issues ever since, and that also ended up having those issues were made worse with another medical treatment that was an attempt to maybe treat those neurological issues, and I've ended up with just some it's not a mental health problem. I have had I in the past mental health problems that sort of that have resulted from it, I guess, which was I'll get into that a little bit later, but it's I sort of have it's sort of a burning feeling in my brain that goes down my arms, and it's in my chest. It goes down my arms and legs a little bit, burning in just at like the just like kind of all over in the brain, ringing in my ears, tunnel vision, like very clear, sharp vision right in front of me, and blurry on the sides, and but mostly it's just the burning in the chest and like the brain. It's sort of like it's impossible to describe, but it's like I have a constant need to move. Like I'm constantly like I need to move, but like moving doesn't even like really help it. It's just like it's just sort of an inability to feel calm and relaxed. Only now have I realized how physical the sense of calm is, how in the body it is, it's not a mental health issue or cognitive. It's really um it's just neurological, and I just can't feel physically calm, and I'm just so good at this point at hiding it and acting right anyway, because I know how to act right, and it's just so people don't really realize, but it is constant, and it varies, and there's a name for it, and like I've talked to doctors about this, and like I understand how this happened as a result of the treatments and all that, but I won't even get into those details because that's a whole separate part of my life that I will completely share at some point. might like write a book or something. I'm not sure honestly exactly what I'm gonna do, but um, and so I've been dealing with that ever since really the start of COVID, March 2020. And so people always talk about like, their experience with quarantine and the isolation and stuff. And I I had my own thing going on kind of. So to be honest, I wasn't thinking about COVID, wasn't any of that. I was at home. Oh, not because I was worried about COVID, but because I was dealing with that. And it was, and that was why I started running 120, 130, 140 miles a week, was because of that. I just, that was the meaning to what I was experiencing. That became the meaning to the suffering. Like I would not have been able to deal with it without a meaning. I needed to have a meaning. So that was what I create the meaning I created. I decided I was gonna just do training that I've never heard of really other college runners doing before, and I started doing it. It's just super high volume workouts, extremely high mileage with no, really no break from it, and it worked great for a while, and but especially like my junior year, which was when I ran that MAC meet, and then I ran 8:13, 14:08, and then I ran 29:46 for 10K, and it worked great for that time. And then going into my fourth year of college running, of course it was the same. My symptoms hadn't really decreased at all. I had just a better perspective on them, better ability to take care of things in my life that I needed to, despite them, but hadn't really gotten better. So I still needed that meaning. So my dreams to break 14, to maybe be all American in cross country, there was so much more to those dreams, because that was the meaning to my experience, to an experience that I sort of have a good idea of how many other people have experienced it. It's not a super common thing when it comes to, you know health issues. It's definitely something that a lot of people, just in terms of like the number, have experienced. But it's so I just, it turned into obsessive tendencies, just looping thoughts about needing to achieve my goals, needing to break 14 to make this all mean something, just needing everything to be perfect, feeling like if things weren't perfect that I wouldn't be able to do it, and that's where what kind of turns into a mental health problem. And I've talked to people. I definitely, there's a little bit there. Well, there's a diagnosed PTSD element to the whole experience, which is, there's a lot of things I could say about that diagnosis, and how I feel about those types of diagnoses in general. But that's a story I'll share on another day. But so there is that mental health element to it, and which is, I've probably talked about this with people and used the term PTSD, and like which is a term I've been given by, and I, like, there certainly is, there was a mental health aspect to it. um uh, um because all the obsessive tendencies, I just isolated myself, just complete focus on my goals, 100%, nothing else in my life. Didn't talk to my friends hardly as much for, that whole year. And but the mental health element is like that. I'll touch on this like it, soon, is something I've completely moved past. I don't have mental health issues now. I just have this neurological problem that affects my life a lot. And um I so it just turned into just like everything, diet, sleep, everything. It had to be perfect. I was like super thin, as low body fat as really I've ever known any runner to be, really. And I wasn't weak though, because I was, so that was what I took at the time to think that I was doing all right with that. I wasn't too thin. I wasn't really weak. I seemed competent enough with weights and stuff for someone as thin as I was. So I just thought, okay, this is fine. I'm supposed to be this thin. I was this thin last year and ran all these times. So it just kind of turned into just things weren't really working anymore. I got sick my not COVID, but got sick that season in cross country early in the season, and was sick for basically 6 weeks, like full on sick for 6 weeks. And like, just things were, I just had a horrible cross country season, then tried to run track. My body just wasn't, it just wasn't working. So I decided, this can't be the meaning to my suffering anymore. If it's not even going to work, I have to find another meaning. I realized at that point, this isn't really gonna, like, I'm not gonna achieve my goals like this. It's not gonna happen. Like I can't get away from these obsessive feelings about running. I'm just gonna unfortunately have to take the successes that I've had in my career, which, and at that point it still had been, I had great moments, um, and I'm just gonna have to stop. And I got a blood test, and it came back I had severely low testosterone, like super low, as low. I mean, I'll share the number for anyone who has a reference for that number: 1.26 nanograms per deciliter, which is less than half of the cutoff for clinically low, which is 3.00. And it was as low as that gets, which, I could share a lot of things that, about me at that time that make a lot of sense. That I had severely low testosterone. I shaved my face about once every 3 weeks at the time. 21-year old shaving once every 3 weeks. And just I had no motivation. I had commitment and dedication to an infinite degree, but no motivation. Hated every second of exercise. Did not want to do. I just was so committed, so dedicated to that goal, and so dedicated to the meaning that it had to me, and had so much respect for the version of myself that set that goal, that it didn't matter. I just kept doing it. So it wasn't until I got that testosterone number back that I realized, oh, this is what was wrong physically. It probably, and there's many factors that I believe influenced this, other than me just being super super thin. Because obviously a lot of people get there are a lot of very thin distance runners who do not have low testosterone, but I won't even get into those details now. But I will say that, like, I think me being that thin for that long is what eventually led to me. I ran well for a while, and then eventually
Mhm.
testosterone just plummeted. It was, and I just I couldn't perform anymore. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. It was good that I walked away from the sport. I want to go into coaching, so my coach let me stick around as an assistant, a volunteer assistant. That's what I'm doing now. And so what I did, what I did after that was like, okay, I'm going to start lifting weights and gaining weight, and see if I can fix this problem naturally. And I was pretty sure I would be able to. Sure enough, um, I gained close to 40 pounds, just a little mid high 30s, um, with a lot of that being muscle, and obviously a lot fat also, because I needed that. And I've completely corrected the testosterone issue. Uh, not low at all anymore. Feel great physically. I feel amazing. And but I needed a new meaning, so I started, reconnecting with my friends, and now my friendships are, they're my meaning now. And there are some people in particular who've just showed me so much compassion and understanding, and have shown me a desire to understand my experience that has surprised me. And those people know who they are, and and so so I still have a meaning now but it's just my relationships now. So yeah, so right now I'm a volunteer assistant at Eastern, doing my last year, and because I want to go into coaching. So yeah, that's how I've ended up here. That's my story.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really appreciate you coming on here and telling your story. In fact, you even answered some of my next questions. So we can kind of skip over those and talk about some more fun stuff now.
Yeah,
But I do look forward to seeing you down the road as a coach. That was, like sent you some of the questions before. That was something I was excited to ask you about. And it was awesome hearing how you did transition into that role as a volunteer coach. I hope that does work out for you. I think I've told you before, that's what I want to do. So it'd be pretty
yeah,
cool to see you down the road in the same profession. It'd be a lot of fun. But although your competitive running career is over, your racing career continues, because The runner never leaves us at the end of the
Yeah.
day. Last year, though, you competed in and won the Central Ohio Milk Mile. Shout out to Zach Kreft and Bailey Kreft, who do a great job with that event. I hope I'm back in Ohio to compete in that someday. But not only that, you claim to own the Big Mac Mile world record as well. I think it was a 9:06 is what you put on your Instagram caption or bio or whatever it is. Not sure where it is exactly. Maybe it's on your Strava. But what do you like from running these kind of races? And could you talk about both the Milk Mile and the Big Mac Mile?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's I talked about this earlier. I can put away food. It takes a lot to get me full. Um I I don't know why exactly this is. I think I know I have a propensity for low testosterone. I've looked at some research about an inverse relationship between testosterone and a hormone that either stimulates a full feeling or stimulates a hunger feeling. I don't know. It's called leptin. But I really have no idea why I'm like this. I've eaten. I'll just mention a few crimes that I've committed. I've eaten 30 White Castle sliders in one sitting. I've eaten two large pizzas with two toppings each and four donuts in one sitting. Um, I've eaten three double quarter pounders, one single quarter pounder, 20 nuggets, and two large fries in one sitting. That was on my birthday. And from McDonald's, that's the restaurant. That's right. And
Good.
so I've done those things. And so, like, I realized, like, okay, well, I'm not a competitive athlete anymore. I can do this chocolate milk mile thing. So I knew about the race. I'd known about it for years. I think it's so cool how the Krebs do this. And it's like, okay, nice. I'll enter this because I had still I had through this whole time gaining weight, fixing my testosterone, I had run every day. I haven't done less than 60 miles in a week since that time. Like I'm still, I just, I've gone out and run every single day. And so I did like, just a few little workouts, did a mile time trial on like nothing basically, except just slow jogging and ran 4:28. And I had gained close to 40 pounds. And it was like, man, what? And so it's just, I guess that's just had my body was healthy then. So yeah, and so I was like thinking maybe I could run low fives in this chocolate milk mile because I have like a lot of capacity. I can run fast with a lot of my stomach. I'm not necessarily super fast at the actual chugging itself. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll just try it. And I ended up running 5:08 and won it that year in the summer. And I was like, okay, nice. This is awesome. I'm pretty good at this combination of things. And so it was just so much fun though. Oh my gosh. It just brought the animal out in me. Like I it was awesome. And Hunter Moore was in that race and he got second. And so then this my friend who runs at Dayton, Jack Dunlop, he reached out to me after that and we had like gone on a run before that. And he like reached out to me after that. I was like, "Hey, I want to do a Big Mac mile. Would you be interested?" And I was like, "Oh, of course." So we ended up having like a field of 13, me and like uh, Jack, a bunch of his teammates from Dayton, and then my friend Luke Brown, who was my teammate at Eastern Michigan. We that was our field and we got all the Big Macs, lined them up and just yeah, kind of got after it. I totaled 4:21 for the running portion, which obviously we're having significant breaks here as opposed to talking about mile with insignificant breaks. And I averaged 71s for the Big Macs, so like not 9:07 total time, and they were calling it a world record after because we've done a thorough search on the internet for anything faster, and there is nothing on the internet that's faster. So it's sort of an unofficial world record. If anyone wants to tell me that they ran faster, I'd love to hear about it. But it wouldn't surprise me if no one has because I don't think it's something that a lot of people have done. I also don't think it's something that a lot of people have done and not put on the internet. So it's so yeah, that's with that story there. And then the next chocolate milk mile, the winter one that the Crefts do because it's biannual, or semi-annual. I don't know which. I think semi-annual is the correct word. And but it's on Friday of this week, so it's
Mm-hmm.
like it's coming up, and this time this time I've been training for it. I've been doing chugs. I've been doing workouts for a while. I'm probably on like 8 or 9 weeks now of structured training. I did I've lost a little bit of weight. I've gone from like mid 160s to now I'm like mid 150s. Um, I jumped in a random 5K at GVSU a couple weeks ago because like the some of the Eastern guys are in that. I ran 14:58 on like just basically I'm pretty heavy. I'm running 8 to 9 minute pace every day by myself for my mileage, and I'm just doing like a few light workouts. I was pleased with that, and then I've been training a little harder since then, losing a little bit more weight, doing some harder workouts. And I'm feeling really good. I had a really good 5 mile progression this morning, and then I did 4x400 after. I think I'm feeling good about this. I'm really gonna, because people who know me, they know that like I can't just do something. I have to like do it. So I've like basically put in like 9 weeks of structured training going into this, and like been practicing chugging. I think I might run well under 5. So yeah, we'll see how that goes.
That'd be pretty awesome. That would definitely be going into a milk mile. You're not supposed to chug milk that much, that fast. So to be able to go sub 5 would be pretty incredible. And I come from Kennesaw State where they had Milk Mondays. I'm sure you saw that on
Yeah.
Barstool. It's funny. I'm wearing a little Barstool here. I mean, like I said, you're not supposed to chug milk that fast, and to be able to do that's pretty impressive. I'm sure you're going to do very well. And I'm just like you, just if you're going to do something, might as well be competitive in it. Love your attitude towards it. And my last question of the day stems from the last time you joined me on the show during the national cross country draft. And I forgot to let you know the results, or at least I might have informed you a little bit about it. But you absolutely wiped the floor with Christian and I. And that's actually something I want to talk about, not to pump my chest out too much. I consider myself to be pretty knowledgeable of our sport. And I feel like I truly thought going into that meet, I had a clear grasp of what was going on in NCAA, what was going to happen in Stillwater. But instead, you nailed it. I mean, I think you rostered 7 All Americans out of 8. You had Charles Hicks, Isia Rodriguez, Brian Fay, Dylan Jacobs, Parker Wolf. That was your top 5, followed by Graham Blanks.
Yeah.
And your number 7, Liam Murphy, had won his regional. And I think he came close to All American,
Yeah.
but wasn't quite there. Then, of course, your girl you drafted was Caitlin Toohey. Just an incredible showing. I have no idea how we let you draft that good of a roster, but you really drafted one of the best fantasy cross country teams I've ever seen. So I was a little curious about that. How were you able to draft with so much confidence when we did that just about 7-8 weeks ago? And is this something you ever realized you're really good at?
Um. Yeah, I guess I wish I could say like, oh, I knew this and this and this because of these reasons, but it's more I sort of just used one philosophy sort of for it. I wanted to identify and pick the people who I feel like were on fire at the time, like who ran well at regionals, who seen because I know like some people aren't going all out at regionals, but like it's still I feel like the ones who wind up at the front are usually the ones who are just sort of just on fire and at the moment, like maybe didn't run as well at early season meets, but now are putting it together and just are have so much momentum coming off of like a first or second place finish at regionals. And I saw this year there were a lot of those types who I thought might be free for me to pick because I thought that you guys might pick some others. There were some obvious names there that weren't super far, people who had done great in previous meets. So I decided, okay, I'm just gonna go with people who are on fire right now, and then and that's it ended up working this year. I don't know how well it would work on other years, but that's sort of what I was thinking for that. And I certainly was not expecting to have my sixth guy get 13th. I certainly was not expecting that. Like it was happening. I was like, what? Like I had no. I can't say that I wasn't confident at all that I was going to beat you guys. I thought I had. I thought I had a chance, but yeah. So that's what I think about that.
Yeah, I remember during that race. I'll be honest, I wasn't exactly hard pressed to see where our three teams were checking in. I was much more focused on defending my fantasy cross country league title. But when I did do the kind of results check in the next day after Christian had asked me how he did, I looked at it and I was like, wow, Andy did terrific. I was like, I think you scored under 25. You just had an incredible day. Really drafted a great team. And it's clear we've got to get you into the fantasy cross country league next year. So informally, I'd like to invite you to that next year. We're looking forward to having you if that's something you'd like to be a part of. It's a
Yeah,
pretty good group of guys. We have a good time every year, and maybe you could put a stop to the run I'm on a 2-year tear. Couldn't win the title in high school, but finally I figured it out at the college level, having won 2 straight championships in the 2 seasons we've done it. And I could really use a foe like yourself to come in and humble me maybe a little bit. And but Andy, with that being said, it's been terrific having you on the show today. I really appreciate you coming on, taking some time to share your story and talking with me.
thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, letting me share this story. I know this might be your longest podcast. I'm not 100% sure. I was wondering if it might end up like this because I have a lot to say about some things. You've asked really good questions. I'll say one more thing about my main story is I forgot to mention. That is something I would like to mention. I've
Absolutely.
noticed some things about how I'm feeling. Where I think there's some hope that like some some things are trying to my nervous system's trying to put some things right again. So I've learned a lot. I've really been into neuroscience for a little bit here, just learning things on my own. I'm getting a picture of what I think is going on, and but there's reason for me to be hopeful. So I wanted to. I've realized I forgot to mention that. So yeah, yeah, thank you so
Yeah.
much. For having. I have a really unique story. There's not a lot of other stories like that in the running world. And I'm really glad that like you're giving me an opportunity to share it because I know a lot of people don't they know I have a story but don't really know what it is. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad I could provide that platform for you. Really enjoyed talking to you, just even about the other stuff, and I'm glad there is a positive spin to have come out of it. So seems like you're doing well. Really glad to hear that. But with that being said, thank you everybody for listening today. Really had a great time with Andy on the show, and I will catch you guys all next time on Outside the Oval.